Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Johnny Kirkland here to talk about Lev Vygotsky's social development theory. This is for the Foundations of Education course, and let's just jump right into it. Let's do it. All right, so Lev Vygotsky. Lev Vygotsky was born November 17th, 1896, and he died only 37 years later, a young death, at June 11th, 1934. He was born in Orsha of the Russian Empire, and he attended public school for a while, and then when he went to college, he graduated from the University of Moscow with a law degree. He had interest in humanities and social sciences, but was pushed into medicine more by his parents. After a year of going to school for medicine, he decided he didn't really care for it and transferred into the law school. After the Socialist Revolution in 1917, Vygotsky was introduced in psychology when he was asked to be a researcher at the Psychological Institute in Moscow. He completed a dissertation there and during his tenure called The Psychology of Art, and also published a book, The Pedagogical Psychology. So it took 4 decades for his works to be published, but now they're used across the world in universities all over the place as gospel. This guy wrote a lot of good stuff and was a big-time psychologist and world-renowned today. All right, so social development theory, what is it? I tried to sum it up in a few words. It's a theory that's set to prove that social interaction is with a community of people is necessary to the cognitive development of all people. So a person's full cognitive development relies on social interaction. That's how people learn. How do we survive? How do we learn to speak? How do we learn to interact? I mean, even as far as dance or use our phones or use tools, these are all monkey see, monkey do activities that we learn from interacting with others and watching others, watching those who know a little bit more than us, have a little bit more experience than us. So I totally agree with Vygotsky in this sense that you have to learn from people that are a little bit more experienced than you. It's a great way to do it. So, social interaction and the cognitive development. Small children are wired to give everything meaning. Fire equals hot, ice equals cold, or just a few items. They're entertained by, as many of us may know, a lot of the lights and flashing things on telephones and iPads. Children are very observant, and as they're learning new things. And even as adults, as we're going through a home buying process or as we're going through new classes, we're also very observant, and especially when you get into the workplace. And I think this we can incorporate this theory into being teachers. They don't really tell you how to get started in school, and so when you get to your place of work where you're going to be teaching, you're going to ask a lot of questions to get the day started. So you have to be observant and you have to be interactive to know where you're going to go. According to Vygotsky, the relationship between an individual and society is dynamic, according to Anastasia. The society has an impact on the individual, but the individual also has an impact on society. It's the butterfly effect. One ripple causes, or one drop causes a lot of ripples in a lot of different places. So, what long-term journeys do people go through that require social interaction? School, sports, pets, jobs, relationships, the whole thing. Parents are the guides to social interactions at home, and as the children learn to play with their parents, the parents might take them on play dates, which they learn to play with other students or other kids. They end up growing up with these students, and they end up growing up with these kids and become students and learn how to interact with them in the classroom, as well as a new adult, the teacher. And the cycle continues year after year, all the way up into college, just as we are communicating today. Social learning and development. Vygotsky claims that for a person to grow and develop, they must have experiences first. Once the individual has a social experience where the individual reaches out or connects with someone or something, that person has gained a small amount of knowledge. That knowledge is then applied or developed. How does a child know not to pull a dog's tail, for example? Well, if the child pulls a dog's tail and the dog turns around and barks at him or bites him or whatever the case may be, that child then has the knowledge, let's probably not pull the dog's tail. Now, Vygotsky goes into another thing called lower mental functions. He believes that we're all born with some kind of survival instincts. These lower mental functions are carried through our genetics and include hunger, memory, smell, taste, touch, our five senses. So, a child or newborn does not have to be told he's hungry or that something is hot or cold or sharp. Once he has the experience that something is hot or cold, he'll remember. Memory is one of the key things of survival. So if, we encounter that fire is hot, no one's going to go run across coals unless, you lose a dare or something. Thankfully, after experiencing things like that, we can commit it to memory, and it's a good thing. That way we don't die. Hunger is also another thing. We don't have to be told we're hungry. As newborns, they cry when they're hungry. They cry when they're trying to express certain things. Moving on. So, developing your lower mental functions. An individual will develop their lower mental functions to give them meaning. They'll no longer cry for hunger, but when they're getting hungry, they learn to prepare food. As they get older, they develop their lower mental functions into higher mental functions. They will continue to acquire memories and learning how to interact and use language. Children also start to develop perception. They'll start to learn similarities and rely on their senses to perceive. But more interaction with adults or the thing that stimulates them is necessary to complete their development. All right. Vygotsky's 3 stages of speech development. I found this very interesting as I have one on the way. I have a little boy on the way, and I think this is really cool. So, social or external speech. This is baby speak, or anything that comes before the age of 3, is used to control others' behavior. Obviously, newborns are helpless. Toddlers can be helpless as well. They can't fend for themselves. They can't feed themselves. So when they cry, that means that it's our job as adults to take care of them. It takes a village. You know the old saying. As they develop, they start using coos and turning those coos into sounds and words. And we call that egocentric speech. This is the ages between 3 and 7, where the child will start completing sentences. And not long, articulate sentences, but short, I guess, just short sentences. Go play, or I'm hungry, or I'm thirsty, or want milk. So like 2 words or 3 words that combine to, make their actual sentences to control their own behavior. They know when they're getting hungry. So when they say want food or I'm hungry, they can articulate that, hey, something's going on, I need this. Please, mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or whoever the person may be taking care of them. Babysitter. So, let's see. Inner speech. Moving on, inner speech. The child begins to grow up and begins to think and do things for themselves. They begin to think before they act. And they use that to direct their thinking and the resulting behavior behind that. So, when this occurs, you might see little girls playing with Barbies, and they're creating a soap opera. A lot of times they'll give commentary to army man or soldier, depending on whatever they're playing with, and they'll create these little stories, and that's called inner speech. this is practice for them. This is practice for their mental capabilities. So we use language as building blocks. As vocabulary increases, so does the directions of the thoughts and opinions and cognitive development. Without the initial coos and cries in order to direct a response, the child would have a very difficult time adjusting to the social interaction and questioning. Excuse me. Language involves expression and comprehension and must be delivered correctly, or the person receiving the message will misinterpret the message. Obviously, if you text someone, hey, I hope you have fun, or you could be using it sarcastically, or say, before a play, you text someone, hey, go break a leg. They might misinterpret that because there is no expression behind the text message. If you say it to someone and you give them a smile, obviously know you're being sarcastic and wishing them good luck. Text messages are a tough way to communicate with expression. So this is the more knowledgeable other. Vygotsky theorizes that people learn to acquire skills through interactions and culture, and the culture surrounding them. One of the best ways people learn, according to Vygotsky, is through the more knowledgeable other. This is the person or thing that has a better understanding or more knowledge about a specific subject, as I talked about earlier. We learn through experiences, and a lot of those experiences come from being around people who know more about something than we do. The zone of proximal development. The ZPD, according to Vygotsky, is where an individual will learn the most sensitive information in the forms of instruction and guidance. Notice that Vygotsky doesn't say that MKO will model the task or fully assist, but by allowing the child to grow independently using only guidance and instruction, the child will reach a higher mental function faster. This allows, obviously, an overarching goal of having this committed to a long-term memory. Whatever the task is, if you give the child guidance and instruction, they learn to do it on their own. You can correct as they develop, but when you're not fully assisting them, they learn to do it themselves. They create a muscle memory effect. So this is your ticket out. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you learned something about the the social development theory. If you could, on your own paper, what is the name of a psychologist known for the social development theory? What does the acronym MKO stand for? Who can be an MKO? And what does the acronym ZPD stand for? What is one piece of knowledge that Vygotsky says that is passed through our genetics? Hint, this is also one of the lower mental functions babies are born with. Here are the sites I got all my information from. The Anastasia was a blog on Vygotsky's social development theory, and it has a ton of information on it. I only pulled a few things because I only had 15 minutes to do this. So please go check that out. That's really cool. And Colleen Suchachki, she created a YouTube video on this stuff and is super, super informational. If you have any more issues or questions on this, you can reply to me in the forums, or go check out these sites. They're phenomenal. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. Have a great one. See ya.